everybody.
Howdy.
Back again.
Yes.
We have some clarifying to do.
Some clarifying, really?
Yeah. I don't have time to answer all of the emails we're getting to clarify some stuff and to debate people on YouTube, you know, under an old video that was done like a year and a half ago of something I said. So we're just going to clarify it here to everybody of what was meant. So, first of all, under our governing body credentials, part 1, there's a debate going on. Some said, I'm tired, you know, when I said that they're waiting for their future appointment, and that this person wants to make sure that I'm not telling, you know, half-assed truths. And, dude, to be honest, no matter what you say or do, even when you have the absolute truth, everybody still says you get accused of lying and half-truths, so...
Yeah. And, you know, no matter what you say, no matter how you present your information, those JW apologists are never going to get it.
Yeah.
Simple as that. They're never going to get it. So, you know, instead of splitting hairs over a technicality, maybe you ought to just look at the big picture.
Yeah. You know, technically it's not new light. Okay. In that video, I was not referring to the July 15th, you know, Watchtower 2013, I think it was. I was not referring to that. What I was referring to is when you go to jw.org and you click on their, you know, events and all of that, this comes up. It is the annual meeting report. Now, this was from the one that was in October of 2012. Now, what I was referring to in that video about their future appointment, you know, as the faithful and discreet slave, you know, I'm not going to split hairs.
No, there's no point in splitting hairs.
This is what I was referring to. Now, I'm going to read this. I printed up the entire article on jw.org, you know, about their highlights from that annual meeting, and it was the 2012. So I'm just going to read this, and this is what I was talking about. When does Jesus appoint the slave over all his belongings? Jesus said that the master on arriving, parentheses, literally having come, will appoint the slave over all his belongings. When does the master, Jesus, arrive? The expression translated on arriving is a form of the Greek word erkomai, verses 42 and 44 of chapter 24 translate a form of that Greek word as coming. In those verses, Jesus is referring to his coming as judge during the Great Tribulation. And they have Matthew 24:30, 25:31, and verse 32. Jesus' appointment of the slave over his belongings, then, must also be a future event. Now, here is the point I was making in that video. He will make that appointment during the Great Tribulation.
Now, technically, that is new light. Because I was a Jehovah's Witness since 1971, those early days. And all those years that I faithfully read Watchtower magazines, never had I ever heard anybody from Watchtower saying that they're going to have an appointment during the Great Tribulation.
Yeah. Now, if I misspoke and said after the Great Tribulation, I apologize. You know, sometimes I say during, after, you know, sometimes I misspeak and say a word. But, you know, to split hairs over, you know, technically it's not new light.
Yeah. Technically, I'm only a little pregnant. You know, either you are or you're not. Either this is new light or it's not. But it is new light because the Jehovah's Witness has never heard any member of Watchtower say, oh, we're waiting for our next appointment during the Great Tribulation when we're going to get appointed over all of his belongings.
Because we had always been taught that this was done back in 1919.
When Jesus arrived and he inspected the temple and he chose the Bible students to represent him.
That's what we were taught.
And then at that point, Jesus' domestics were given to the Bible students.
And that's the way it's been for decades, ever since then.
Until 2012, that thought has remained until this annual meeting.
Yeah. So, you know, just to clarify, And like I said,
research it. Just research it.
It's not worth fighting over, guys, you know, because like I said, there's this big debate, you know, and some trying to defend whatever. It's like, it's not worth fighting over.
Here again, you're never going to convince a JW apologist of what the truth is, because it doesn't matter. You know, you can go right to the reasoning book, look up the cross, download the Imperial Bible Dictionary, fill in the ... and that JW apologist is going to go, yeah, it's exactly right.
Okay, now the second thing we have to clarify is we've had quite a few emails and comments and stuff asking Mike to clarify what he meant when God, you know, Jehovah, allowed Abel to be killed, but yet he protected Cain.
Well, I thought the scriptures were pretty self-explanatory, because Cain was whining and crying about somebody finding him and killing him, and God said, no, that's not going to happen. If anybody kills you, 7 times that amount of punishment is going to be exacted on him, basically. Yeah. I read it right from the New World Translation.
Yeah. And, you know, we are not intending to bash the Bible or God or create doubt about that or anything. We were just making a statement. The reason we didn't give a lot of details on that is because Jerry Jones had done a video and we didn't want to take his thunder. But since, you know, this, like I said, I don't have time to answer all these emails.
Well, and probably those people haven't watched Jerry's video either.
Probably not. Probably not. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the book that Jerry was reading this from, and we're going to try to explain it. Okay, I know this is kind of hard to see, but it is the book that is called The New World. And yeah, it's an old one.
Yeah, and it's a Watchtower publication.
It is from 1942. And as you can see, you know, it is a Watchtower publication. But over on page 36... this is what we were talking about, you know, looking at Watchtower's beliefs and doctrines. Let's see, this is the first paragraph on top of above the subheading. They're not numbered. It says, Abel was the first of a cloud of witnesses for God, whose name alone is Jehovah. Therefore, Jehovah's Witnesses began with Abel. So Abel was the first Jehovah Witness. God made known to Abel his promise and revealed to him the proper, typical sacrifice of worship. And thereby Jehovah God made Abel his witness. Hence, no man is the founder of Jehovah's Witnesses. God alone is. They must be and are all witnesses to the new world. Abel was in the world that had become ungodly, but because of his faith, he was not of that ungodly world. Now, when you go over to the next page, on page 37, you know, this is what we were talking about. Because then it starts talking about Enoch, who walked with God. You know, he was the 7th in line from Adam. In hope of the new world, he kept himself unspotted from the ungodly world and was a faithful witness to Jehovah. Satan would have had Enoch killed, as was Abel. But Jehovah God did not permit this. While Enoch was yet young as compared with life expectancy in those days, God translated him in a vision to see the new world. And then it goes on to talk about how Enoch did not see death. And what's interesting is they actually quote from the book of Enoch.
Well, you know, this is where Watchtower messes up. Satan would have killed Enoch as well as Abel, but Jehovah God did not permit this. So if God did not permit Satan from killing Enoch, then why did God permit Abel to be killed? Now, keep in mind, they're saying right here that Enoch was relatively young compared to life expectancy back then. If you read Watchtower's chronology about Abel, Abel was right around 100 years old when Cain slew him. That's Watchtower's chronology. And that's the point that I was trying to get at. If the Watchtower Bible Tract Society is trying to put this title on Abel, that he was the first Jehovah Witness, then why didn't he protect him like he protected Enoch? But yet he allowed Cain to be murdered, and then he allowed Abel to be murdered, and then Cain whines and cries about it, and then God protects him. says that if any man slays Cain or takes Cain's life, I don't have the Bible in front of me to read that again, but you know, it was a pretty self-explanatory scripture because Cain was whining and crying about people finding him and killing him, perhaps exacting vengeance for the murder, and yet God forbid anybody to exact vengeance on him.
Yeah. But that's all we were, you know, trying to say, you know, with that about, you know,
well,
God protecting Cain and not Abel is, you know, we were talking about Watchtower's doctrines.
But doesn't that go right down along with even the philosophy we see of Watchtower today?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, when you realize the predicament Watchtower's in, okay, here we are, baptized in 1979, we dedicated ourselves to Jehovah God, read the Bible from cover to cover many times, and we were faithful witnesses, became a ministerial servant, regular pioneer, arranged our schedule so that my daughter could regular pioneer. Kim worked full time to support 2 regular pioneers. We're doing everything that Jehovah God was requiring of us to do. And then we find a subliminal image and question it. And what happens? Watchtower murders us spiritually. Cuts us off from our family. You know what? Watchtower might as well had put a gun to our heads on the day that they disfellowshipped us, like everyone else that's been disfellowshipped. And yet, the righteous one, the people that are trying to do exactly what Jehovah wants them to do, are killed and slain, and our blood is metaphorically crying out in the field, yet Watchtower continues to get away with it day after day after day. It's almost like Jehovah's protecting Watchtower. See? And that goes right along with the scripture in Ecclesiastes chapter 8, because when I was a Jehovah's Witness, I threw this many times into an elder's face over the injustices that I was seeing. Ecclesiastes 8, verse 11, because sentence against a bad work has not been executed speedily, that is why the heart of the sons of men has become fully set in them to do bad. And isn't that what's happened to Watchtower? Because they've gotten away with this for decades, century. Their heart is fully bad. Although a sinner may be doing bad 100 times and continues a long time as he pleases, yet I am also aware that it will turn out well with those fearing the true God, because they were in fear of him. But it will not turn out well at all with the wicked one. Neither will he prolong his days that are like a shadow, because he is not in fear of God. Well, when is the justice going to come? How many more good, honest-hearted people have to be spiritually slain with their bloods laying in the field? Let's throw in those physically slain, the blood doctrine. Back in 61, it's against God's law to take fractions. All them young people, all them old people that could have had a blood fraction to save their life were slaughtered on the operating table, sacrificed to the God, Jehovah, that runs and controls Watchtower. When is all that blood going to be avenged? The point I was trying to make with all of that is that nothing has changed. The innocent are always thrown to the wayside, and the guilty and the unrighteous always seem to have protection. And that's exactly what happened with Cain and Abel. The innocent was allowed to be slaughtered and died, and the guilty got to live a long life. Clear now? I hope.
Yes. I want to thank Julie for the very cute, adorable birthday card. Mike loves it.
Yeah, I love this thing.
He's easily entertained.
Yes, I am.
Tony just watched your latest video, loved it, cried, laughed. Can't wait for you to get out here, you know, and we can do family stuff together, barbecues and everything else.
Yep.
And just want everybody to know that, you know, the heartfelt the expressions that you see in that video, that's the Tony we know and love.
Yeah.
So he may try to hide it, but we see right through
I know better,
it.
Tony.
Oh, yeah.
Trust me,
we had you
better.
pegged the very first time we Skyped.
Very first time we Skyped, we had Tony pegged.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, love you guys. Hugs to everybody.
Thanks for watching.
You have a good evening.
Bye. I love this thing.